You just came off tour. After the couple of years that we've had, what has it been like to be on tour again, and what is it like to now go back home and kind of settle in again?
Oh man, I don't know. Like, it seems like, for the last couple of years, it's just like everybody's been this like spring that's been getting just like pushed together. And then like this like last month, it was just like the spring is popped wide open. It was like also the first time we get to play some of the new songs. So really exciting to see how that's actually like, how people actually like, you see the response right away rather than like we've just been in the studio and it's kind of doesn't feel real until you like play it on a stage, I guess.
Yeah, is it fair to say that you guys are pretty much a live band, or obviously you delved into production a little bit, but is live the kind of main focus for the band?
I think it's just two different things. So like, okay. I think and maybe where those two things are like diverging a little bit, but it's like the live show like is all about having fun and energy, and I think then the recording lets us like capture that, but also explore like other realms and kind of maybe bigger soundscapes than like the three of us necessarily, is more about just like the energy, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we get into Blue Skies, then, what are your thoughts now on the previous album, Flower of Devotion? Because it was a different time that you made it in, and it was received quite well, and then it allowed you to make Blue Skies. So how do you look back at that album?
I feel like Flower is just like a twin of Blue Skies.
Okay.
We actually, yeah, because we wrote that like pre-pandemic, and we wrote Blue Skies, I guess, in the pandemic. But to us, I don't think circumstances really matter on like how we write or what we're writing. I mean, our emotional landscape is what we're writing about, and obviously, I guess they do affect that. But we're pretty like simple in our approach, and we kind of stick to our center. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I just feel like they're two really good albums, and they're both reflections of each other, and they're kind of like twins. That's how I view them. Mm-hmm. And Water is like the little sister, and self-titled is like the 10-year-old or something.
With like Flower too, like at least like musically, I think it was like somewhat of like, at least for me, and I think the band too, like we had kind of gotten to a place, and then it was also about like sort of like being inspired by the stuff that had inspired us at the beginning, or like, kind of like getting back in touch with like the roots or something like that. And then this one, I feel like Blue Skies was like also like acknowledging that, but then also trying to like discover some new territory, and kind of taking influence from some new things that at least new to me.
Oh, but that's an interesting thought, because Emily, you mentioned kind of that center or that foundation that the band has, which obviously you try to protect, but then as you say, James, you kind of want to expand on that as well. So what is that, walking that line, like kind of sticking to what you are, your identity, but also experimenting Jason, sorry.
I guess it's kind of like no, it's okay. I think it's like like gravity or something, like there's like kind of the main idea that like will kind of keep being pulled towards. So it's like the further you can kind of push out, you kind of land amongst kind of in orbit or something like that,
Yeah, I see it as like we just take baby steps out of our center, but we're not like reinventing the wheel, and we're not trying to like expand or so much so that we're not recognizable, because we're happy with what we're making. And if other people are happy too, that's great. But it's just like, change is constant. So obviously we're going to stay in our center, but we're not going to stay the same. So it's just kind of like how life is, like change is inevitable. So our albums are going to change inevitably.
Fair enough. Well, there's one thing that I found during my kind of research was Flowers of Devotion was kind of seen as a surprising success. Was it surprising to you guys as well?
I think so. I mean, I thought it was a really good record, but I was maybe surprised at just like how far it traveled, I guess. More
Yeah.
than anything else, I guess.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think I would have been surprised. Like, I think everything we write is good. Like, we're happy with it. And again, if other people are happy, great. But obviously, we want that because it's our career. But I think if any record had been taken so well, we would have had the same sense of like, oh, okay. Because it's just, like you can think something's great and no one else can. And like, it might not be time for everyone to see it too. Or, you have like a friend who has really good music and you're like, why does no one think this is amazing? I think it's amazing. So I think that it's neither here nor there, like the successes of an album. It's just kind of like, am I happy with it? Are my friends happy with it? That's the true sign of like success. But if other people think it's popular, it's like weird. I wonder why this is the time that they've decided to like it. I don't know.
Is this a mentality that kind of comes forth out of the musical community that you kind of came up in as a band, that it was very well, first of all DIY, but also it was a nice community of people trying to support each other and everything, and that the outside world doesn't matter as much in that sense?
I think like definitely like a lot of the people that were inspiring to me were like doing things just because they like had to do them or were compelled to do it, and also just like exploring things that were interesting to them, and that's what was so interesting to watch people on their path of discovery, and so I think in that context it was like this kind of sense of like purity or just like for the love of the game rather than like
Right.
of like the end result or something like that, or where it could take you. It was more about like, especially like the cassette culture and stuff like that. Like there are so many, I mean, and there's still great tape labels but here, and like it's just like the fact that you can make it so quickly, and it's just like, yeah, I think this is an awesome idea, it's like, here you go, it's just like kind of a lot more for just sharing and having ideas. So
yeah, and I think like I'm careful with attaching my well-being to outside opinion, but of course I want to be liked, and I want the band to be liked, and I want us to be successful, but I can want that and not be attached to the outcome of what people think, because I know it's so fickle, the public opinion, and even fans' opinions or critics. Like it's much more valuable to me to make sure that I love what I'm doing and that my friends and I are in communion with that process. And then like it's an extra bonus if the rest of the world feels that way too. But I'm really careful about attaching myself to that, because that's like recipe for depression.
Fair enough. Well, what I always find interesting then, and this is a difficult question, I suppose, to answer, but what drives you then? What is it that kind of compels you to be creative or to do this?
Well,
I mean, yeah.
You can go first.
I mean, me and Jason probably both feel this way. Like we've talked before about how we process our separate, we process emotions via writing, songwriting, art. So that's one simple answer. And then what compels me is sort of like, I don't know, I just came out this way. It's like, I have to make art and music. It's almost like life and death, it's like really dramatic. I'm like, I have to do it regardless of what happens after the having to do it is kind of inconsequential. But I think a lot of creative people maybe feel that way. Like it's just what we were made to do or whatever, in a kind of sweeping statement sort of way. But in a smaller way, it's just how I find joy and how I process a lot of my feelings, thoughts, emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for some reason, like music is like the only thing that like, I mean, maybe it's not the only thing, but it's like the primary thing that just like makes me like slip into like a different world, or like, and like I can do that anytime. Like just like I can walk into this room and like start messing around with the drum machine, and then it's like, where have the hours gone? So I don't know, like, excuse me. Yeah, it's like a bit compulsion, and it's a bit of like for whatever reason, that this is the thing that just like resonates on like a really personal level, I guess.
What does the creative process in general look like that? Because I imagine it's different for each song, but what is kind of the way you operate?
For this band, it's all just like 95% jamming in like in a space. So like, I guess to your like live question earlier, like all the songs start out in a live, just drums, bass, guitar, and vocals, like in the room. So that it happens pretty quickly, and it's mostly just us chasing a bunch of little ideas that are all spawned by interacting with whatever the other individual is doing. You know, maybe it'll start with Eric playing the drums, maybe Emily will play bass, or like someone will sing something, or I'll play a guitar line, and then everyone just kind of snaps into like, this is the little world that we'll create right now.
And is it for each album that you do, is there kind of experimentation period, perhaps the first couple of weeks where you start thinking about an album and kind of which way you're headed, or isn't it that conscious? Are you just making music and see what happens?
I think it's
the latter.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But then the experimentation stuff comes a little bit more in the like how to capture it, and then how to like, because like on the records it isn't just those individual pieces, you know, like there is more, and so it's like more so I think where we stretch ourselves there is like how the thing is put all together, kind of.
Yeah, how can we support the song as we're writing it, and then, you know, a lot of intuition and a lot of freedom and sort of dancing around with each other. And then in the studio is where Jason shines, because he does all the production and recording. It's like, how can we serve the song in this environment now that it's been, you know, created in this one landscape? Now we're bringing it to this other one, and there's a new set of experimentations and dancing, so to speak, to occur. So they're similar but a little bit different. Yeah.
Jason, for you then, what was it like delving into the production side? I don't know if this was something that you were always interested in, but I think particularly on this album it kind of shines through. So what was that process like for you?
I mean, sorry, I got a frog in my throat.
No worries.
I basically have like recorded everything that we've done, with the exception of our very first tape. So like part of all these albums is like me also like learning like how to do it and going through my own like fads of like, oh yeah, like like we started out and then it was like, how like minimal can it be? So it's just like just vocals, you know, like everything's super simple, and then kind of delving into more like textures and stuff. And then this one was kind of like seeing like, I guess, yeah, like how far we could push it or something like that. And then also like kind of like learn the tricks of I don't know what slickness is or something like that, but like using it in our own way rather than making some overly shiny kind of thing. So I think it was like a little bit of a balancing act between those two worlds, and then also just kind of a lot more like trying things out. We took a lot more time just to like find the right mics for things and figure out the way, like with Emily's voice has always been like interesting because she can sometimes be really loud and then other times like sing very softly and stuff like that. So like figuring out ways to like, and all within the course of like one verse or whatever, you know. So it's like, how do we actually capture this so that each of these moments shines, but it still is just this one thing, you know? So just like a lot of experimentation, and it's just like, I love putting together the puzzle. So like, that's like, it's just like a big fun game for me.
Yeah, and I think one thing I like about the music that you make is that it's very atmospheric, and yeah, I think in part it's part due to Emily vocals and kind of the way it fits together with your voice and the melodies and stuff. Mm-hmm. But is that a conscious thing of we're trying to set a certain atmosphere or a certain scene, if you will, even kind of in a cinematic way?
Yeah, I think it's like so much of it is like mood, you know, like it's really like just like the way that two notes like on my guitar sometimes fit together, and I'm just like, oh, I can, you know, it's just like, I don't know, it just like is kind of an overwhelming thing, and then I just like try to serve the mood really. So like, I guess partly too, it's like I've always had gravitated towards like music like shoegaze music and stuff like that, like early on, and like a lot of really distorted stuff where there's like that kind of magic in between the notes or whatever, it's like this textural, visceral kind of thing. And so I think that's something that's interesting to me, because it's like you kind of can lose yourself in these textures. It's not melody, or it's not even the song exactly. It's just this kind of like colors or something.
And Emily, do you write the lyrics, or is that something you do together, or how does that go?
We both write our own lyrics, and we both make up our own melodies for the most part. We do take suggestions from each other if we have an idea. But I think a lot of what we do is we try to be like, what does the song need and what does the person need? So if Jason is taking the lead on a song, I try to position myself to serve his ideas, and vice versa. And same with Eric, because me and Eric are like the rhythm in a way. But so is Jason. Like, we all just sort of see where the lead is going and where it needs to be served, and it doesn't matter which one of us is taking the. But yeah, the lyrics I write, and Jason writes his, and Eric writes his too. I forget, he writes.
Mm-hmm.
He's a little slower, but he does a song a record now.
Let's talk quickly about that one then, because this is Hold, I believe. So do you always encourage him to join into to the kind of lyric writing, or?
Well, we've always been encouraging, but he's pretty shy about sharing stuff. But every once in a while, you'll just get like a voice memo recording, like randomly at like 3 a.m, and then you're like, oh, what is this? And you're like, wow, this is a beautiful song. I was like, can we do it? And he'll be like, I'll think about it. And then he'll be like, yeah, like we can do it.
He's like, yeah, we've been encouraging him since day one. And it's actually shocking to me that we've even gotten 2 songs out of him. He's very careful with sharing stuff in general as a human. So I'm really proud of him for stepping out there and trying out putting a lead Eric song on the records where the public can hear it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. He has such a beautiful voice and way of saying things. It's just nice to be able to try to like support his message.
Sure.
Yeah.
And well, but then at the same time, for the two of you then, because you have written and you still write about very personal things. I mean, you've talked a lot about in previous albums about kind of the broken off relationships between the two of you, and now you delve into other kind of philosophical / personal things. Has that always been easy to kind of bare your soul in a way like that?
I guess the only thing. Oh, sorry.
You go.
I think like the thing that makes sense to me is like, or like I can't necessarily like offer up like a super eloquent like hot take on like politics or something like that, but like my way of like saying something useful is like through like some personal like lived personal experience that maybe like other people can recognize some part of their own life in. So it's like I think that's just like the way that I'm useful. I would love to be like the super smart post-punk guy, but I've tried and it failed.
Yeah, I think for me, I thrive when I work through my emotions very publicly. I'm not a private person, and I feel fearless when I put all my fears out there. They seem to disappear when I do that. So I write like that for sure. And I don't know if it's difficult. It's more like a challenge that is, the end result is very freeing. So it's worthwhile to do. It's not like I'm suffering through some sort of emotional person. Like, the feelings are going to suck no matter what. And I would rather put them into a beautiful song and have myself become free that way through, public recognition and people relating to it, because I feel less alone when there's people being like, I relate to this song, or this song really helped me. And even if nobody listened to the songs, like just me putting it on paper and putting it into a song gives it a home that isn't necessarily in my body anymore or something.
Is there one song we can pick out then from this album that had an important effect or important kind of purging effect on you?
For me, I think Window was that song. But they each have their own purging effect. Window's probably the most dramatic one, I guess.
Well, that's an interesting one to focus on, because that's where the line "blue skies," I suppose, comes from as well. So, and I also read that it had numerous occasions and then went to the trash before kind of finally finding its way. So how did that song start, and how did you kind of give it that element of personal experience?
I think also like the songs never really, sometimes they go to the trash, but most often we write so prevalently that a lot of them are just sitting on the shelf, like waiting either for their day to shine, or they have committed their purpose by being written and they don't need to go anywhere else. But that one we took back off the shelf. And so it was like written years ago as the beginning of me getting through heartbreak and loss. And then now it's like Blue Skies was added this year, and that became the album title. And it's like the overarching theme of the album of like, you know, heartbreak, loss, whether it's death or relationship, having your best friends keep you lifted up and alive, and then the hope of the blue sky to keep you going, whether it's like emotional collapse or global collapse, which everyone can relate to.
It's kind of happening both at the same time at the moment, it feels like.
Exactly, yeah.
And then from the production standpoint, Jason, what's that? Why didn't it work first, and how did you kind of figure out to make it work?
Well, I think just the way that the song was arranged before didn't work, and then also when we had tried to record it before, I like fucked up recording the vocals. Like it might have been the first one that we had tried, and it was just not right. So then it was kind of a goner one, and then we kind of I think the only thing that really stayed the same was the bass line, and then basically everything else changed. Like Eric reworked his drums. I kept a couple little guitar things, but then built all these new areas, and then we put it on the end, which like just kind of I think just like finished it, I guess, you know. And like the drum beat that Eric made up is so cool. Where before it was maybe dreamier, but I feel like this one is like, it's like one of the leads of the song, you know.
It's like an anthem-y. It became like an anthem.
Yeah,
and like again, like serving the song, like we may have tried to serve the song back in the day and weren't, you know, ready or capable or whatever, and then now as we are in this point in our life, we were like available and ready to serve it as it should be served, and so it just was ready to come out now. But you never know, you know, if a song's going to come off the shelf or not.
Well, but
we
it's
just keep trying.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, but there's something interesting in that, where you mentioned earlier on that life is continually changing, and as a band you are continually changing as well. Do you feel like this album Blue Skies is kind of a step up from what you've done before? Should I see it as one continuation?
I guess it's kind of both.
I mean, yeah, I could. I'm sorry.
Oh, I mean, you know, it is just like, yeah, it's like the next thing that we made, and it's where all three of us as individuals were at a specific time and what we were dealing with. So in some ways it is this continuation, because it's like, it's just the story of, you know, people's lives, really. But then, but I do think it is a step up also, because I do feel like this is we really pushed ourselves to like try some new things and like kind of reimagine like what a Dehd song might sound like, or something like that too. So
yeah, I think it's like a baby step up. Like again, we have I don't know if formula is the right, we have a strong sense of self, and we're really good at, you know, we stay pretty grounded and centered in our like band persona and vibe. So I feel like this album, why I think of it as a twin to Flowers, that they're very similar albums, and you could put them on shuffle all together and they would sound like they're in the same house. Whereas that doesn't necessarily apply to the other albums. But all of them are just like various numbers of baby steps apart from each other. Like none of them are like, unless you compare like the self-titled first one to Blue Skies, that's like a leap. But, you know, that's because it's, you know, how many years has been between the two, and recording, like the way we record and the styles we choose, like a little cleaner, less reverb, less dreaminess, the introduction of the drum pad and beats into the music. But I feel like the songwriting and structuring has pretty much remained the same throughout the albums. They've just been like slightly advancing.
Okay. Well, final question then. In terms of, you mentioned you don't like to set set expectations and kind of worry about the outside world and then how they might feel about what you do. But do you guys set goals for yourselves in terms of where you want to go with the music? Do you set creative goals? Do you set maybe you want to play at certain venues or something like that?
I feel like we've already met all of my goals, so now I'm just chilling.
Yeah. Kind of same. Like I have a few things like that I'm like, oh, that would be nice, but they're no different than like I was like, I remember in the beginning it was like such a big deal to me to play the Empty Bottle, and now we could play there whenever we want, and it's not like this weird unattainable thing. And then it was like Pitchfork Fest is the thing, and then it's like we've played Pitchfork, and it's like now it's not a weird unattainable thing. It's now I'm like Coachella, but I know that's gonna we'll probably play that next year, and then it'll be another thing that's just like everything is relative to.
Sure.
So it's kind of like, yeah, it'd be cool to win a Grammy, but also I'm like, that's just because society tells us that's cool to do. But really, really, yeah, I'm pretty, like Jason said, like a lot of my dreams have been met already in life in general, and to which I feel very lucky about and to be aware of. And then also in the band, I'm like, yeah, I'm in a chilling state because I'm like, I can't believe where we are now, and I'm like so happy, and it seems to just keep being escalating. So I'm definitely trying to stay grounded and centered even more, because it's like whether it's in the face of like criticism or praise, like I have to be like, do I like or not like what I'm doing? Because too much criticism or too much praise can be detrimental to like my spirit. So yeah, I feel like I'm pretty much chilling and just trying to show up for what the band is going to be next. And, like I'm doing stuff to take care of my body so that I can perform better, like things like
Sure.
that. Like those are the things that I'm trying to challenge myself to do, like, but it's more out of a necessity than like a goal or something.
No, but it sounds like a very healthy attitude, and it's interesting that you already kind of arrived at this realization now, because there's a lot of musicians and artists I talk to who once they kind of blow up, they almost forget to enjoy what they're doing, and they kind of are in this roller coaster, or how do you say, a hamster wheel?
Yeah.
And then they don't really once they get out of it, which was for a lot of people the pandemic, they could kind of look back and then enjoy a little bit of what they've done. But it's good that you already have that attitude and can see the beauty in the little things of what you do.
Yeah. That's what makes it all happen, really.
Yeah, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that. I don't know how it happened, but I'm like I'm chilling.
No, but it's awesome to hear, because I speak to so many musicians where it's almost the other way around, where they're so almost desperate for certain levels of success or something, which is obviously unrealistic as well. So it's interesting that you've kind of found a way to be happy in what you do without the external world, in a sense.
Yeah. It's probably the secret to life. And I mean, who's to blame them? Like, we live in a society that tells you to be that way, and it's really hard to fight against it, because everybody's telling you that's the way. Not only in the music industry, but everywhere, and it's just not the way.
Well, Jason, Emily, may I thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you.